now
What's up,
for our...
profitable stylists? What's going on, everybody? Look at that entrance. Yes. Nailed it. All right.
I've already...
We're live. Yup.
Goodness.
We are going over hair extension placement patterns.
You have trouble saying that?
They're tongue twisters. Every single title, every single week is some kind of a tongue twister. I can't say them all.
So honestly, this is one of our better performing videos I hear from our business partner, RJ. I was getting my coffee ready.
Coffee over there, right?
I think this is a New Orleans cup. I think that's the Superdome right there, but I don't know. It might be some other dome in some other city. It's great. Yep, it says New Orleans on the inside of my cup.
Crack me up.
Nobody's bought me a coffee in a while, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Hey, listen, placement patterns. I'm pretty passionate about hair extension placement patterns. You can tell Eddie is too from his smile. But I'm going to go over a few different ones and what's common in all of these. Is there something you want to say before I get started? Because I got a feeling I'm not going to stop for a while.
Yeah, you're gonna go on a rant. You're gonna be on a nice rant. I'm gonna go get some popcorn. I'll be right back. Right. So look, why are we talking about? Okay, why do these videos get the most attention? Why are placement patterns such a searched topic, and why are they so important? So let's tackle those. Placement patterns, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many pieces or what type of extension you put into your hair. It only matters. So this was taught to me a long time ago by a mentor. A haircut is not about how much hair you cut off. It's about how much hair you leave and where you leave it.
Right.
Yeah. Hair extensions is the same thing. You could be the best installer of an extension, but if you don't put them in the right spot, you did a suck job. You could be the best placement person. You could place them the best way, right? But if you don't use the right extensions for the right person, it's still a suck job. So that's the reason why it's so important. This is why there's so many patterns, and this is what Bernard is about to go into so heavy right now, because it really does matter.
If you don't want to end up on a Walmart video, like, the people of Walmart kind of thing. I mean, those are some of my favorites. And I love Walmart. Everybody goes to Walmart. High end, low end, bad extensions, all the bad stuff of every industry. You can pick them out. It's like going to the airport, just people watching the good and the bad, and the wild and the crazy. I want to say I like that you said all the techniques, because I got everything from wefts to strands to tape ins to all the things that are similar to it, all behind me as far as patterns. And then I've got one from good to bad, just to kind of show you the difference, like why it can be bad. But I want to mention one of the most common themes that are going on behind me that most stylists get wrong. I think you're right about saying the right extensions or the wrong extensions, the right amount of hair. Like some people put too much hair, too little hair. But I think if you had to pick one out of everything we're talking about, is where it goes on the head. That's a good start, because the where can make it where the kind you use won't be as important, and how much you use could be minimized. So it makes it faster and easier and look better and be less money for everybody involved. So there's a lot of little nuances going on. Although everything is important, I did them all really bad for many, many years, good and bad for many years. And as I did them and got the more and more experience, I got less and less bad as I made those mistakes and screw ups, and then started putting them on some shaved heads just to kind of show people what I've learned. And the most common theme that I keep trying to get out of my mouth here is how high you should put them. That is the most common mistake, is people, almost everybody wants to put extensions in like this. And this is not terrible this is one weft. Most people want to go so far from the part on both sides, and there's a time and a place for this, and that's why it's drawn on here, because you can put one weft. This lady is pretty much parted in the center. That's my artistic drawing of hair. After I've shaved, I did a brown Sharpie and drew some hair. It could be a little wavy, or some of them are, but it's just a rough idea of a center part, right? And so this girl, I would not say that this one weft is for length. This is for thickness, just to add some fullness, because then it doesn't matter where it goes. So that's the other thing to think about. If we're going to put hair extensions in, first of all, the word extensions, it's just been a terrible name for our craft. I mean, it's stuck. We're not changing it now, but it insinuates that we're lengthening hair. And extensions can do so much more. Between highlights, lowlights, and thickening, naming a few, I think thickening is a huge one. And if we're just going to add a little hair for thickness, it really doesn't matter where you put it. It's going to make everything look a little thicker on the way down. Cut it off at the same length, fine. But if I'm going to extend hair, usually one weft's not enough. Somebody with really thin hair, maybe, but I wouldn't put it that low, because what's going to happen is from the part all the way down to here, if you can imagine all of that hair, thick being a bigger problem, thin, not as much of a problem, but all of that hair, especially if it was all one length and it was a bob, it's going to be a weight line here. This is going to protrude out under all this hair. So there's going to be a weight line. So that's the first trick or secret to putting extensions in.
Now, I want to add on to that too. I forgot to say this in the beginning. A lot of the placements that we're showing are going to be encompassing full sections or full head placements. But I can't stress this enough. You don't need a full head of hair. One pack, one weft, 10 strands, in K-tips or keratin bonds, 20, half a pack of 25 from the individual strands, one row in that same section. See, like that section with the strands and that one weft mannequin from before, the placement is the same area. It's the same idea. So it's just using the creative imagination to say what matters. Where does it matter? A lot of times people say, oh, I'd love to do extensions, but I don't have clients that want their whole head done. But you have clients that are missing half their head somewhere on their head. They're missing hair.
Oh, you know where they're all missing hair? Right here.
Mm-hmm.
And right here.
Yep.
Them darn ears. I would usually use curse words, but then we don't trend as high in those darn ears. And so many of our clients have them, right? And foreheads and faces. That's what messes up the front, right? So if you think about hair from the top to the bottom in the back, boom, that's a lot of hair. So in the back, hair is always going to be thicker in the back. And I can't tell you how many years, this sounds so stupid, I could not figure out for years why hair was thinner on the sides compared to the back. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me in the very beginning. I just went to school, learned how to cut hair. They say cut hair here for one length, here for layers, here for that. They didn't really, maybe they talked about it, but you don't quite get the geometry. Then they say a head's round, so you can't treat it like it's square, but it's not round. It's flat here, it's flat here, it's rounded here. It's kind of flat here. It's a little rounded here, but more round. So, it's this weird, odd shape that you have to take into account for every. Oh, that was a big, loud noise outside. I think it was a dumpster being dumped. I thought somebody ran into the building. It was boom. But maybe a dumpster fell off the back of a truck. It was so loud. But because of all these shapes and curves, it throws you off. But the biggest one for extensions is ears. So from the top of the head to here, so thick, but then from here to here, you just got less hair. So it's already going to be less hair on the sides. And then most people are going to take some of this side hair and they're going to take a section out in here somewhere and make some sort of a bang type of fringe cut in the front.
Bang, fringe, framing, yep.
That's going to take hair away from one of the sides. And then when they part over to the side, like any one of my mannequins here, you're going to have less hair on the side you part on and more on the other side. And so between cutting to frame the face, cutting the bangs and ears and bangs, you just start wiping out hair on the sides of the head. Then if you're just slightly thinner than the average person, you've just lost so much hair on the sides of the head. And that's when what you're saying is a huge benefit to almost anybody who wants thickness on their sides. They don't know or think they want extensions. They don't want to use that word. They don't want to be put into a class of, I'm not rich. I don't know. It's crazy how people think about extensions. They think all the extremes. Some people think just poor, trashy people do extensions. Some people think just rich people can afford them. Some people think just celebrities do it. Just strippers get extensions, because hair is their job. I mean, it's crazy that people think just certain races get extensions. So with this is everybody. A little bit of hair on each side. Like you said, it's minimal. It's one hair no matter what brand. This happens to be the On Sage hair, which comes 25 strands per pack. So I put on this side 12 on this. And I know that doesn't add up to 25, but I have this thing about odd numbers. And so I couldn't put 13th one on one side or the other. So if you count, that is 12 dots and that is 12 dots. And I say, you decide where the 13th one goes, maybe in the middle, a little rat tail, something. Maybe you throw it away so you don't mess up your OCD like me.
You need your symmetry, right? Symmetry is beautiful. Symmetry is life.
So, yeah, that kind of answers your question. And I have a few other heads up here that kind of cover the partials, which are huge money. But I do want to focus a little more today on full heads of lengthening, thickening and lengthening, getting more hair. And one weft can do it. I have a lady in Montana who puts a lot of just one wefts in because we sell some wefts with more hair and less hair. She'll put the one with the more hair. She'll put it a little higher so she has less of the client's hair to contend with. But then I'm going to go into two wefts. And so I have one single plus, one double. Do you see that orange or red line starts to look really wonky? It doesn't look.
It curves up real high.
Symmetry there because I went with a little deeper left part on the mannequin, and those brown lines are hair again. That's not a big spider on her head. And so that spider look on top of the head is my kind of showing, okay, whoops, I hit the screen again. It's not just a side part, it's a kind of deeper part. So now this client has a lot less hair on this side and a whole lot of hair coming over here. So if I took the two wefts, let's just talk about the bottom weft for a minute. I just went around, kind of dipped it down low so I had some room to put a second weft in, but I don't want to go so high that if the hair splits open, we see the weft. So there's the challenge. You got two lines you're trying to stay away from. One is the thinness of the hair, the split open, the crown, whatever it is. You don't want it to open up and reveal a little bit of the weft. Anybody, God, I wish I could, I'm going to get the number wrong. Most people out there have seen the movie Yellowstone. Have you heard of Yellowstone?
I've heard of it, yes.
It's really cool. It's a sort of a Western, but it's more of a modern day Western in Montana, trying to keep the land. But it did so well that they did a prequel, kind of like Star Wars, They did a prequel and they went back to it's trending huge in this country. And so they went back to 18 something. I don't know. I said 1886 and somebody goes, I think it's 1883. So I don't know the exact name of this series, but it's pretty doggone good. And it goes back to the roots of how they acquired the land in Montana in the early days when all you had to do was fence your land off anywhere in the country and you owned it. A little bit of the battle between the white man and the Indians, so it's a little political at the same time. But the star of the show, a young blonde-headed girl who's really just finding herself in the world as they're traveling across the country. I'm looking at her hair. It's bleach blonde. People are criticizing her because she's got dark roots, and they're saying her hair's obviously bleached. She's in the 1800s. She wouldn't have access to that. She wouldn't care about it. I'm saying, oh, it's sun bleached. She's out in the sun every day. She's on a horse. She's getting bleached. But then there's one real emotional scene where she turns her head real fast to look out over the plains, and her hair splits open, and bam, I see the extensions.
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, it's there. Yeah, and it was a pretty good job. And I think I'm seeing a tape in, maybe a weft, but it opens up, and you see it in there. really good job, because I watch a whole bunch of episodes, keep looking like, God, her hair, beautiful hair, really good hair. It all blended really good. It was long. It was overly thick, is why I didn't think it was extensions. Just longer. Great job. I didn't look up who did it, but props to who put the extensions in. It was a really good job. Placement's great. The cut was really good all the time. Swinging her hair. It's all dirty all the time because they hardly ever bathe in the 1800s when they're traveling across the plains. You know, they don't have bathtubs. They jump in a river when they can.
How you know you was there? How you know?
No, they're mimicking it in the movie, you know. But you see her extensions, and so I was so glad to see extensions in her head. Now,
so let me tell you on that one. So
yeah.
First things first, the name Beth Sutton.
Yes. You looked it up?
No, we're getting comments over here. And then 1883.
1883.
And now here's the thing I'm going to say. Here's my response to this. I like a lot of Asian culture, Asian lore. Okay?
Okay.
And even myself, if we're doing heritage stuff, even in my own culture, I'm Euro-Asian. I'm technically Euro-Asian.
Okay.
It was when how I say this the right way. Your hair extensions, the things you added onto your hair and onto your body, was an extension. What was a representation of your political standing, of your social standing, and of your military standing. So, especially in battle, it was not uncommon for warriors to have things sewn into their hair or into their clothes or into whatever, you know, and to be adorned with how you call those battle medals, talismans. Yeah. You know, so extensions have been around forever. Hair color. Cleopatra invented hair dye. She colored her hair black.
Right.
And I don't know what, now what year was Cleopatra from?
Back to extensions.
Yeah, right.
So what I think most of you guys noticed that my orange line is crooked, right? Compared
Real
to
quick though, Bernard, go back to your blue line. You specifically dip underneath in the back there. That's the occipital bone. A lot of people miss the occipital bone on the lower section when they put in the bottom row.
Yeah, and this head is not 100% accurate to what most real heads are. You're right. There'd be a little bit more of a protrusion of the head right here, and that's a good point, Eddie. When you get to the when you're putting extensions in, and you don't want it to show on the back of the head from the side view like this, you want to pick the part of the head that sticks out the most and not put something there. Why take the part of the head that sticks out the most and add more to it? Unless you're trying to add fullness, but more than likely the hair that's falling above it is just going to split over it because of the lump you're adding onto. So I'm kind of below and above it with both extensions. So that's the thing that most people make a mistake, and they think they can't get on it, so they stay below it and never get above it. You can actually go above it also to make your extensions look good. So here I'm taking a few of the things I've already talked about into account. One is I want to get close enough up here so I have less hair falling over the top, so it's easier to blend, but not so close that the hair splits open and shows it, unless you're in 1883 and you do like that, you know, and your hair whips around. But on this side, I probably could have gone a little higher with the reddish orange line. I could have probably gone a little higher if it was a little thicker, and I probably could have went a little closer to the front, maybe a little. But one of the reasons I aim up instead of coming straight around is that on the side of the head, this hairline generally goes on an angle this way up to the top. So the higher you go with extensions, the further forward you can go. Then when you go a little higher, you can go a little further and then higher, further forward. Now, it doesn't show as much on the side with the part on it, but watch on the other side. So here, I'm just kind of, I'll put the blue line in of a weft, but then I kind of split the difference between here and here, and that's kind of where the orange line got, and with the balance of not trying to get too close to the part. But on this side, it's way up there. I definitely could have went another inch or inch and a half this way, because this is where that side part way over on this side gives you some bangs that swoop over the eye here.
I mean, it's always going to be dependent on density. As so long as they have enough hair to cover it up, if they pull it back or sweep it back, that's how close or how far you got to stay.
Well, that's right. But watch this. On this side, the bottom row, which is the blue line, if I'd have came like most people do, just right into here, I would have stopped here. But by going up a little higher, I was able to go a little further. And if I would have taken this line and straightened it out, it'd be here. I'd end up cutting off about an inch of it, and I'd lose about an inch of density on the side. So by traveling up diagonally, a lot of these hairs are crossing over these hairs because of the way it's tilted. So I'm getting a lot of more fullness on the side because
and you're
of the
getting more
angle.
coverage in the framing.
I am, because I went a little higher, so I was able to go further forward to blend more with here. But then nothing's blending with the bangs until I get up here. So that's where this line goes further this way. But you see, if it was down here, it'd be where there is no hair. Couldn't do it here.
Great.
So I have to go up higher so I can come further. And I technically, depending if they wear bangs or not, could go even further to here if there's no bangs to get this extension to blend with the bangs in the front. So that's my soapbox. Go higher so you can go further forward.
Can that placement with the wefts be interchangeable with tape-ins?
Oh yeah, I've got tape ins behind me also. So I
interrupted your coffee over there. You got all excited.
Well, before I get to tape ins, let me finish the trend, because I kind of put these in order.
Oh, you got them in an order. Okay.
For thought process for me, because I went from one weft, two weft. Why did you get a sip?
You're so excited talking about your manic. I didn't think you'd see me fast enough.
so three wefts here, and not all wefts. You got to know your wefts. I know a lot of the hand-tied wefts cannot be cut and altered. They have to be folded, or you can cut them, but you got to sew them and you got to glue them, but they might unravel. So most people just fold the ends, and I get it. And so you can do this, but it's a lot more trouble with a hand-tied. A machine-made weft or even our beaded wefts can be cut and they don't unravel. And the reason for that is this is an example of two wefts, the black and the orange line going around, and then the third weft. So again, look at this. Parts here, the orange line is pretty high here. It goes up kind of high on this side, but that part allows me to put more hair in this area. So I take the third weft and I cut it up. I put a little here, and then a little up there. So I did different colors so you kind of keep track of where they are. And that blue line, our wefts are 12 inches wide. So I got a 4-inch piece, a 3-inch piece, and another 4-inch piece. So if you do the math, I got an inch of hair left over I didn't use on here. I was just drawing it. So I could probably have put a 1/2 inch more on the back and the front here, or 1 inch, and I could have got all 12 inches.
That is my favorite thing to do. I love cutting the wefts and putting little sections of them throughout the hair.
So check this out. On the orange line, it's a 12-inch line. I took a ruler and I laid it on there and I pinned it. And by the time I pulled it down back here, it took this. If it was going straight around, it'd be like this, but when you dip the back, you see it sucks it away from the front. And as it did, I got further away than I'd like. So when I look at this, I think, man, these two are pretty close to the same. As a matter of fact, usually this one would go further if I could. But with a third weft, I knew I was going to be putting that up there for the hair on the front. So I didn't worry about getting it far enough here. I was being real world. I got 12 inches. What do I do with the 12 inches of weft? I concentrate more on this other side. I concentrate more on this side because I'm only putting the two wefts over here. So I want them to come far enough forward. They're on the part side, so the hair's already pulled back. So it's going to blend pretty well with this side. I probably could have dipped that down a little bit and went a little further forward. When you second guess it, you can always see how you could have did a little bit better. So yeah, boom, I hit the camera again. So a little lower and went further here. But my concentration was getting it on the front hairline the best I could on this side, because when I came around here, I didn't mind losing the distance here because I was going to come in and fill with the third weft here to fill in that front section.
One of the things on the weaker side there, I think it's more important to focus on the weaker side than it is to focus. I think we spend too much time focusing on the part side because that's where everybody likes their hair to be. That's why they're parting their hair that way.
Yeah.
But for balance purposes, if you can have this be all perfect, but if you don't have enough hair on the opposite side to support it, you just, it looks off. It really throws the whole thing off. So we do have to pay attention. You got to pay, in my opinion, more attention to the weak side because you don't have as much room, you don't have as much hair, and you don't have as much. You got to pay attention to how that hair is going to fall because you don't have as much coverage coming across the framing, the hairline, and especially where the ear breaks in the middle of the head there.
Right.
The ear and the shoulder, actually, now that I'm thinking about it out loud.
Right. So look, this is the same as the one behind me, but this is where it starts. So this was my first biggest aha in the extension world when I was doing she hair strands on stage. People are bringing hair up there. Will you put this hair in my head? I want a full head. I got 40, 50 strands. What do you want me to do with 60, 70 strands? Whatever. And I'm thinking full heads are at least 110, 20, and that's shy of like 150 or more. So I started thinking, what are the most important places to put extensions? Like if I had to choose the very first row, most important, I'm going to put one row in. And obviously you shouldn't even think of strands in rows. Most people think there should be space between them. I disagree. I started off with wefts years and years, 30 years ago. And I was hand tying them in myself, sewing them in, gluing a few in. And when you sew them in, that wall of hair was beautiful. Blending it in was easier. So when I started putting individual strands, putting space between them, I mean, it looked like that. And I was like, well, how do you fill in between? Oh, you Bricklay. Why Bricklay? So I'm a big proponent of putting bonds right next to each other. Flat bonds, round bonds, beaded strands, eye tips, whatever they are. The closer together, the better the wall of hair. So I'd rather put solid rows in, skip space and put another solid row instead of trying to figure out where that Bricklay pattern goes next. Just my opinion. There's no wrong in hair. It's all opinion. You get paid for it and your customer likes it and leaves and doesn't complain. Good for you. But with extensions, what I've learned was, here's one of my first ones I drew years ago, and I had that hair drawn on top. I didn't realize there were different color Sharpies. I thought they were all black for a while. So this was when I found all the colors, that was an exciting play. I was doing hair, brown hair color, different colored wefts. But this was a little bit of a side part, a real common one. And again, I'm putting my most important row first, up high on top. So I learned that on the average size head, 30 strands, which was 3 packs of she hair. They come in 10 strands per pack. And so the top row, if I went really high, and I kind of followed a certain distance from the part, I'd put my silver rat tail comb in there. And if I couldn't see it underneath all this hair, I knew I could put extensions there and they'd be hidden. If that bright silver shining under the light comb didn't show, I would do it. So I kept testing it from the part. I'd put the comb in, put the comb in, put the comb in. I'd take a little sample section, clip it up. And I'd come back here, put the comb in, put the comb in, put the comb in. I keep putting it until I don't see it. Take a little sample section, put it up. So I would find spots all the way around that would be clipped up, and then I just connected the dots to all those places that didn't show from the part, and that gave me what was fascinating. If you don't even notice this is going on, but this curve follows the hairline curve. Mm-hmm. And so it ended up being a very natural, but so natural that often I would do it on purpose. We would do 3 or 4 of the hairdressers that would double as models, double as educators at bigger hair shows. When we went, I would do 3 or 4 of the hairdressers that were going with me, do extra long hair. Now, here's one of the secrets: texturize the ends of their hair first so there's no solid lines, and then put 150 or 200 strands on their head and not cut it. But the first plan was, we're going to cut their extensions on stage at the show. So I'm going to use them. We're going to play a fancy song, make it look like a big old demonstration. I'll throw a little hair in the air and try to mimic Big Sexy, how they always draw the crowd with all the wild, crazy stuff. But when I would do that, I put the hair in, and then we would look and say, it doesn't even need a haircut. I mean, sure, we could neaten it up, shorten it up, blunt it up. I mean, but it looked really good. And part of that was the placement. The placement pattern wasn't just for hiding and blending good here, but it looked good even at the ends, because in the back, this roundedness gave the hair a natural roundedness down here. It even kind of went to a point, if you kind of, we don't really put them in that sharp, we would kind of round that corner, and this bottom row would be a little more curved. But even straight across, it mimicked the hairline down here, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. But on a real person, I would probably curve it just a little bit and curve this line. But the point was, I was doing my top row away from what would look natural, which happened to mimic the hairline. And then I had so little hair over the top of the extensions, it blended real good up here. You know what this did psychologically for the clients too? So many years, I would start at the bottom in the back. And this is how most hairdressers do. Put extensions in the back, and it would just be this little, well, what do you call that? That's more of a rat tail at first, when you just have a little bit of hair at the bottom. And as you would build it up, and it took so long to put keratin bonds in that by the time I got up to about here, an hour and a half later, I had to take a break. They needed to smoke a cigarette. I needed to pee. I needed to eat lunch. UPS man came in. I had a sign. All they got is a mullet so far. And they were, and I'm taking a break, and they're going like this. Do you think it's blend? Do you think it's going to blend? Do you think maybe we should add a little more hair here? Are we going to end up putting a little here? And, I'm doing this 2 or 3 times a week. I'm making a lot of money. I'm getting real arrogant. I'm making a lot of money. I'm doing them really good. People are referring people. I know. I'm so confident. I know she's going to be fine when she leaves. So I start becoming pretty rude about it. I had to purposely become nice again. But I would say, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. Or I would just ignore them. Or, does your friend's hair look stupid? Don't worry. You're not going to look stupid. I mean, I would just say so many rude things like, are we done yet? Don't you see more hair on the rack? Why are you? Well, I mean,
I'm working here.
Yeah, I'm working here. Come on. Let me get my lunch in. I'm starting to get a little weak. Let me get some coffee. It's going to be fine. Shut up. I was so just rude and confident about it. I had it going on. But all of a sudden, somehow at a hair show, a girl comes to me with these 70 strands and wants a full head. And I realized at that point, I know the top row is 30, because sometimes I would do it just for highlights or lowlights. And the bottom row, because it dips so much, adds another 5 and 5 here. So it ends up being 40. So I know this is 70 strands for a top row and a bottom row. So depending on whose hair you're buying, I don't know if you buy hair and it's 50 strands per pack or 100 or 10. If it's 50 per pack, well, 2 packs, that's 100. You'd have enough to do this and a little more, maybe a little on the sides. If you're buying packs of 10, you can get exactly 7 and you can do this. So the numbers ended up helping out on the average size head, that if I did the top row first, Eddie, these clients were so happy, because you know what it did? It solved all those problems I was being arrogant about. Immediately, they have hair on the side of their face. Immediately, the first 3 or 4 strands. So I did something else. I took the hair comb rack, flat ironed the extension hair. Now, this started off because I wanted to make a good presentation on stage in front of hairdressers. And it worked so well at a hair show, I decided to do it for the customers, the ones I was being rude to, the ones that were actually paying me. So I was flat ironing the extension hair when flat ironing was popular and everybody was getting straight hair, and then flat ironing the client's hair. So then as I would put in a smooth straight hair on their smooth straight hair, 4 or 5 strands right here. I mean, I'm in the back and they're already smiling and doing this with the hair that blends. By the time I finished that top row, it looked great, unless you picked it up and you saw it look like an undercut. But then I immediately would just pick that up, clip it up. I know that's not the best idea to pick extensions straight up after you've done them, but I would. And then I would do the bottom row all the way around. And the reason for that is that's the only 2 rows I have to think about. I had to really think hard, make sure I got them perfect distance from the part, perfect distance from the bottom hairline. So if they pick their hair up, I have enough hair to hide. And then the rest of the extensions didn't matter as much, and they would go in really fast. But after I did that, that's about when I would take a break, or we'd all take a break, or everybody go to the bathroom, eat a little lunch, whatever. Sometimes we'd go to lunch. I used to put extensions in up to here, and sometimes they'd clip the hair up and we'd go out to eat and come back, because I've just spent a whole day doing one client. But with this technique, they'd leave their hair down when we ate, because it looks pretty good. It's not done. It's not thick enough, but they could pull the hair up. It looked good. They could stay down. It looked good. because it was like basically like outlining the extensions. If you put a few along that front hairline, oh, you were golden.
You got that perimeter outline done in, you and I spent a lot of time when we're doing our certification classes for extensions, when we're teaching other stylists, we spent a lot of time going over the placement and the intricacies of the placement patterns, whether we're doing an in-salon, whether you're watching the videos on the online academy. I mean, now that's my speed right there. That I spend a lot of time going through with stylists why that placement right there is the ultimate placement of all. You have the most customization options with that placement right there.
And so this is what I do next. I put that top row and that bottom row in, but on the average size head, I call this the 1, 2, 3 pattern. Mm-hmm. After the top row's in, on the side that they part, I didn't draw hair here. Look, I attempted to start drawing hair, and then I just never did.
She's fine hair. She's got thin, fine hair.
Fine hair. Yeah. And so I ended up splitting the difference between the top row and the bottom row and putting just a few strands in that stop right behind the ear, because then this is going to tie that in here. And I think that's 5, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 5 strand. You counted it already?
No, I know that half a pack goes on that one side. The other half the pack goes on the opposite side.
Yeah. And so by this time, I know I have 30 and 40. That's 70. So I'm at one little row here, 2 little rows there for that other side. So that's 15 more strands. And then I actually counted everything here to make sure I put 150 strands, because that's my average head. And this is a fairly small head. So it's going to be a lot of hair on her head. And then I just do 3 solid rows. Now, the thing is, I do this and this first, because I think that the sides are the most important to clients. The money piece, the money section, the part that they see in the mirror, the only thing they really care about. They don't see the back. So by doing the sides first, again, I was totally serving the client. I'm making the sides of their head look the best, finished. By doing the top rows first, they start off with a good attitude. Then the bottom, they're loving it more. Then I finish the sides before I finish the back. They are just in love with their hair, praising me much longer. It was such a benefit that so many benefits came out of it that I could have never guessed. They're already taking pictures. They're already posting online while I'm doing the back. They are getting me more consultations. They're already posting like, look at me, look at my hair. It's getting thicker. It's getting fuller. Look at my hairdresser. This is Bernard. They're introducing me. We've already got social media chats going on about when can you fit me in for a consultation, because I started to serve the client more than serve myself. So it was so much more rewarding. It was just a better relationship, a better feeling. Everybody's happier. Go ahead. I can see your brain.
You just made me think of something. So nowadays, how that applies to nowadays right now, that's the thing. People are taking selfies throughout the entire process, and then they're posting it afterwards. And that literally is their story from before to during to the after. So starting in the front, starting on the top, look, what do you want your story to be? How do you want your story to be told? That they walked in with their before looking however they did, and then you gave them a mullet until you finally made them look good? Or do you want your story to be told that, look, you're starting to put it together and you just look at how much more it's getting filled in and filled in and filled in, and it's just got this voluptuous, beautiful look going on by the end of it all?
Yeah, if they're just happy all the way through, it's just way better for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry I had to learn that the hard way, but that's the truth, and that's my story.
No, I learned that the hard way too, because when I first started doing extensions, we used to load everything in the back of the head. You wouldn't put anything above the round or above the parietal, and then you would take all of their hair, their natural hair, and you'd start hacking away to try to blend in that mullet, right? Well, then I was always confused, because what was the purpose of putting extensions if you can't grow anybody's hair out? They're forever stuck getting more hair all the time. So out of stubbornness, I refused to do that. And I started putting in on the sides and on the top and going higher out of my own, just to be stubborn against the trend.
Right.
And that's how I learned that one. And yeah, I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning because that wasn't the thing back then. People weren't used to taking care and maintaining that back then. So there was a lot of tangling going on and some hair loss. But then you learn, you evolve, you get better, you get good. You start explaining better to the clients how to maintain their hair better. Everybody starts getting it. It really is life-changing, man. It's exciting. Look, I'm just giddy now. Now I'm just giddy ear to ear thinking about.
Let me go into the other two potential head shapes
Oh, you got
or
more.
side.
Okay, yeah.
Well, even on this one pattern, I don't have the others drawn because I don't have big mannequin heads. But on a larger head, somebody has a bigger head, more landscape surface area to cover, and thicker hair. They might need more hair than this. And
Okay.
where do I put that? Where do I put that more hair? So instead of the 1, 2, 3 pattern, I'll do one more on each row. So on a thicker head, this will be further apart, and I'll end up putting 2 orange rows in there.
Oh, okay.
It is going to require more hair, and that's when I would be getting the 170 or 180 strands instead of 150 if I was doing individual strands. 150 to 1, this is 150. So now I'm going to talk about using 20 or 30 strands more or less, depending on a bigger head or a smaller head. So I'm going to go with the bigger head first. Let's say it's a little bigger head. Add 1 to each row. So then it's a 2, 3, 4 pattern. I'm going to put 4 rows instead of the 3. Now, if it's a little smaller than this head, a little tiny petite head, which is pretty common out there, which usually has a little bit thinner hair also, then sometimes these 2 rows are so close together on a small head, there's no need for a row in here. So now we're going to minus 1 from each row, which means 0 here. It's just a top and a bottom row. And so then on this side, I think we can all minus 1. I know we're all hairdressers and we're a little weak on the math department, me included. Minus 1 here. So now instead of 2, we got 1. So then it's a 0, 1, and only 2 back here. So add 1 or subtract 1 to every reddish orange row, depending on if it's a bigger head or a smaller head. And so that comes into the consultation. Those are the 3 secrets or tricks that I use to figure out how much hair a person needs. I always started with 150 strands. And then I would add 10 strands or subtract 10 strands, depending on each of 3 categories. Do you know what those categories are?
Texture, density.
Put you on the spot.
No, you get how much hair they have. Oh, how much real estate? How big or small is their head? Their head
That's the
shape.
one most of us don't get, but we just talked about it. Even if I talk about it, people don't get it. Right. So you said texture, density. That's all kind of in the same category. The basic volume of the hair. Sometimes it's the amount. Some people can have fine, thin, individual hairs, but have a lot of them. So then I would just call that thick. So, it doesn't really matter if the hair is fine or texture-wise. It doesn't matter if they have little hairs or big hairs. It just matters how much of it, how big of a ponytail that is. And so if they have a teeny tiny ponytail, then they don't need as much hair. So in my 150 average, little ponytail, I'll go down to 140. Average ponytail, stay at 150. Big fat ponytail, I'm going to go up to 160. So then let's say, you got to kind of tailor this to the brand you're getting and how many strands you can order, because sometimes you have to move up to get the amount in a pack. So then the other one is length. If somebody has a bob, compared to where they say they want to be, I just want to be a little longer, no big deal. But most people's hair is in the collarbone length, and they're like, they've been growing, and they give up, and they're like, put it on me now. I need hair down to my bra strap or waist. Well, if they're already here and they're going to somewhere in this area, well, that's not a huge change. So I would just say I'd stay at the 1/6, the 10 over, 10 under, depending on the thickness. I would stay the same. But if their length is like they're a little barely past the shoulders and they want to go bra strap or lower back, add another 10 to build thickness for that amount of length you're adding. But if you're not adding much length, maybe you minus 10. So you see, I'm adding, subtracting, or staying the same on that second category. And then, like you said, real estate, the size of the head. I literally Do this to the next 3 or 4 customers. Put your pinkies on the back of their ear. I put my pinkies on the back of their ear here, and then I over the biggest part of the head, I just cross my hands back here. It's always been my gauge. And usually the average size head, when I do that, my thumbs just touch here. But on her just now, when my fingers are touching the back there, they went into about here. So to me, I call that a smaller head. So everybody's hands are different, so you kind of have to use your hands as your gauge on people. And when you just start feeling people's heads throughout the day to day, you're going to see that some of them are like this, some are like this, and you're like, either her ears are too far forward. Got a big old giant, even guys, she's got a big old giant head. So on this watermelon head today, we're going to need a little extra hair. And so, hey, I can say that. I was always called watermelon head when I was a kid, or you got a big head. No, none of my friends' baseball caps fit me. Couldn't even snap the thing in the back. I have a big head, and I had a lot of thick
and
hair.
You got a lot of hair.
And people know about themselves. When you start measuring their head, a lot of times they say, I'll even say, so I'm kind of measuring for a few things here to see how much hair we're going to need. I'm going to see the density, the thickness of the hair. How long do you want to go compared to what you have? And then what kind of area we're working with. And they'll say, oh, I have a big head. They know. People with big heads know they have big heads, and they'll say it. And you can use nice words like, so your head's a little bigger than average. And they'll say, oh, no, I got a big head. So that helps you and them understand why they need a little bit more hair, which is going to cost a little bit more money, but it's going to look a whole lot better. So you've got to be honest with them. You've got to talk about the realism of what's going on here, the length, the thickness, and the size of the head. They need to know, girl, you got a big head. We need more hair just to cover the landscape here. Maybe we need more hair to cover because you also have thick hair. So all 3 categories. And so by the time I'm done, I went from 150 to either 160, 170, 180, or 140, 130, 120. But each category might have me jump up or jump down all the way along the way, because I could have a big head with thin hair.
And that always comes back down to the consultation being That's so right. important. And just because somebody's budget doesn't allow for that, that doesn't mean you got to force that job into that. What do I mean by that is you do the consultation with somebody and you figure out, your average, okay, now you need 160, 170 strands, but their budget only allows them to get 120, 130 strands. Look, man, you got to refuse the service.
Not to do it. Yeah, it might be better not to do it. But that is when this comes in handy, though, because if you do the top and the bottom row, those are the most important rows. The second most important is filling in the sides.
It's still in the front.
If they wanted to save a little bit of money and you were buying hair where you could get 1 or 2 packs left and you did 2 rows back here instead of 3, you could get away with it. It would look better if you didn't. But there's a gray area.
It depends how good you are at waving your hair, because everything is waved and curls, the beachy waves. As long as you can do good beachy waves with your flat iron, then you can get away with it.
If you're wearing your hair natural most of the time, then just say no if they won't pay for the amount of hair they need. But I would be honest again and say, I'd love to put a little bit more hair, but we could get away with a little less if you're going to curl your hair every day, because that hides everything and it'll look really good. Right. That's a really good point. You asked earlier about tape-ins, which is going to come up right here. But this I drew recently just because our beaded strands, again, same thing. There's a low side part. I'm doing a top row. There's a significance. The darker dots are the finer, thinner, are single plus density, and the oranges are double density. So kind of what I'm doing overall here is focusing the thicker hair on the back of the head and the thinner strands on the side. Some people would do the thinner just on the top row. I mean, so there's a lot of ways you can do it, but this was just a unique pattern I was doing. But the main thing I wanted to cover is that, again, I did my top row, very similar to all the others. And look how high I get with that one. I mean, I really pushed the envelope and got really high up here, but I'm assuming this client's got a little thicker hair and can hide it up there. And I counted, so this is 150 strands total. So this is 3 packs. 50 strands per pack, 25 strands per
25
pack.
per pack, yeah.
Six packs of hair, 75 single plus and 75 double. And what I did was I did that top row, and it's not a 1, 2, 3 pattern. It's actually a odd pattern because these are smaller. There's way more than 30 on the top row. I think I even wrote it here. There's 60 on the top row because they're littler, so they pack in a lot more hair up high. So you don't need as many rows. And I found that because of the way over part, there's a lot of landscape going on here. I needed to really fill some hair in there. But on the other side, because of the deep part, which is a unique situation, these two are so close together, I didn't have room for a third row in there. I would have liked to, because I feel like when you go from 2 rows to 4 rows, that's a big difference. But that's also the deeper part, much more hair going that way.
But do you think it's made up because you're adding in more pieces in that section? Do you think that kind of compensates for missing that row?
It definitely can. It definitely can. And as I'm putting these in on a real person, I get the top row, the bottom row, and I start to see what it looks like on both sides. I might have made different decisions. I'm doing this on a mannequin head, going by just what the head looks like. There's no actual hair to blend with, no actual cut, thickness, density, color, all those things. Am I doing an ombre, a balayage? All those things are going to matter. Do they actually have bangs or not? If it's all one length, maybe I do a different like distance from the front hairline. And again, I do the bottom row and the top row first when I'm going to do a full head of strands, because I want to see how that falls and looks, and then fill in on the sides according to what needs to be done to make it look right. Maybe only 1 row in the middle here would have been enough there, and I might have just filled in more in the back then, or I might have put a few more along that front hairline. So the real world is way different than a mannequin head, and so let's be real about that. But again, tape ins, we keep talking about it. I think the most important thing to me about tape ins is that they're parallel to the ground. When you put a tape in, if you put that tape in at an angle, that top edge, or an angle this way, this top edge is always pulling a little bit more, and I find that's what makes tape ins come out of the head, damage, pull hair out. But this was my full head pattern for tape ins for a long time. Very similar to the 3 wefts. It's 2 rows above the ears. Now I am still doing a side part. I'm doing 2 rows above the ears, but you see on the part here, I'm going a little higher on this side, but not as much. But watch, you know why that's higher? That's that 3rd row thing going on.
Yeah.
So what I did was I kind of stayed even with the 2 rows, because I need to stay parallel with the ground. So I just went 2 rows all the way around, knowing that I was going to be doing 2 rows down underneath here between the ears and adding a little bit up top. Depending on the size of the head, it might be 1, it might be 2, it might be 3. So if I'm going to put tape ins in, and they're not going to be straight rows right next to each other like that, then I would stair step them. I'd put 1 in, step down, and I don't have to cross over that much. You know, those two kind of cross over each other a bunch, but I would step down, step down, step down. And that's the way. Let's see if you can see where the part is. You see it's on that side. And so I'm kind of stepping down as I go around, and then I end up with a gap between them here. Well, I learned from my mistake here too. I could have not had them cross over as much there, so that one could have been back a little further. Then this one could have been back a little further, and it would have been less of a gap. And then the same thing here. They don't need to cross over as much here, or right here. And this one could have been put in a little bit further this way, and then this one a little further that way, and it would have been perfect all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 tape ins around there. And you know what that signifies? On this one, it was the on-stage beaded weft cut up on the little marks that are presented for you to evenly cut it up into 8 1.5 wide sections, similar to a tape in, so you could put a beaded weft in a tape in pattern. And then I just threw 1 whole weft in underneath here. So it's 2 wefts, but one's cut up like tapes and one's just a full weft. And I think I have like what's going on right here.
And that's another thing about placement patterns and choosing the right amount of hair. You don't, we talked about this the week prior. You don't just have to do the one technique that you're most comfortable with. You got to do what the hair needs and what the client needs. So putting in a bunch of tape in or adhesives to support a weft, or like personally, I know you and I love doing like a couple of wefts and then throwing in some strands, some individual strands over the wefts, combination of techniques to create the proper placement to fill in the look at the end of the day. That's really what it's all about. That's what's needed the most. So I know we could put a couple of the links in the description for that conversation that we had about the different types of technique extensions. I know there's another link that we could put in where your formula, you actually have a whole video that you're talking specifically just about that formula of starting off with 150 and then plus and minus the 10, 10, 10, or minus 10, minus 10, minus 10. So we could put those in the description as well too. Yeah.
Let's link like about 100 videos. I'm just messing.
We'll just put a playlist and a playlist and a playlist.
No, you're right. That's good.
All right.
I'm done.
We good, man. Look, that's a lot of infos.
I think that covered a lot. There's a couple of heads back there we didn't touch, but I think we covered all the main points. Thank you guys.
I'm sure this is going to be there's going to be a follow-up video to this one because we're going to get comments. We're going to get questions. So let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you guys want to hear more of, and we'll take it from there, guys. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. We'll catch you all next week.
Did I do it right?